If you have been paying attention, a new kind of role has started emerging in the market. They are calling it as forward deployment engineers or FDE. You can just search on Google and you will come to know that suddenly there has been a rise for the roles of FDE. This is how it typically looks like. You can go to OpenAI careers. I mean, they are hiring for a lot of things, but if you come down here, there is forward deployment engineer FDE, and the huge number of FDE roles have started opening. Now the question is, what is this forward deployment engineer, and why are these companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, basically the companies which are into LLM business and deployment of new LLM models, are into this forward deployment engineering role? And that is what I basically wanted to talk about in this particular video. Forward deployment engineer or FDE basically comes historically from another company called as Palantir. If you have not heard about it, Palantir basically does AI integration work for a lot of clients. They are one of the major, I would say, contractors of US military, US Defense Forces. There is a lot of controversy around the company, but that's not what we are talking about. Palantir has this concept of field deployment engineers, basically engineers from the company who go and work at the client locations and help them to do a lot of AI related integration. That is where historically this field deployment engineer or the forward deployment engineer concept comes into picture. Now, what does a field deployment engineer typically do? What does the responsibility of a field deployment engineer typically looks like? We can just go through one of the existing field deployment engineer role here and to get an idea what we are basically talking about. Let me click here. So if you talk about what the role is, we are basically looking for customer focused software engineers to build custom software that leverages OpenAI APIs to solve real customer problems. So they will be collaborating closely with various departments and the client locations, and they will also work with research and applied product engineering. So what this role will be like, deeply embed strategic customer to understand their business. Basically, if you think about it, what they are basically talking is OpenAI is sending these FDE engineers to the client locations to help the client businesses to integrate their products. When I say their products, OpenAI products, the OpenAI LLM, their chat GPTs, say Anthropic's cloud LLMs in the company infrastructure, so that company can leverage this particular whatever the new technology that has come about in a better way to deliver better results. Now the question is, why did this new kind of role has come about, and why do you think is this currently happening? As per the 2025 McKinsey report, what they have said is only 1% of the companies are AI ready. What do I mean by AI ready? They are able to actually leverage AI and AI related productivity gains after having gotten the huge licenses that are required. Let me show you what exactly is happening through a kind of a flow diagram. So you had this company like Anthropic or OpenAI. They are basically LLM selling companies. Their business model is to basically create LLMs, and then you have a lot of companies. These companies are like FMCG companies, oracles, or even for that matter, a lot of finance companies like McKinsey, oil and gas companies, whose core business is not software itself, but they use the software for doing a lot of their work. And they basically were told by the Anthropic that you can basically get the AI and you can get say 40% productivity gain. Now these companies bought huge licenses from these companies. They are not cheap licenses, but then when they are actually looking at the real gain that they are getting, it is very less productivity gain. in the meantime, when they got these AI licenses, they have fired quite a lot of employees while they were doing this. But for the number of employees that they have fired and the amount that they are paying to Anthropic and OpenAI, the amount of productivity gain that they were promised, that they are not yet getting. And that is what McKinsey report says. Only 1% of the companies are actually seeing the productivity gain that was promised because they are AI ready. What do I mean by AI ready? See, whenever any enterprises have to actually leverage AI, the AI, you can think of it like a brain. And that brain comes at a cost, the token cost. And depending upon what kind of plan you are having, most of the enterprises go for at least enterprise plan or a max plan. The number of tokens that you can burn at that rate is very huge and it comes at a huge cost. So they have a very good brain, but then just the brain is not good enough. You need to have the nervous system which can basically feed the data into that particular brain so that the brain can do a better job at identifying the right decisions that it can take. What's happening is a lot of these companies have got the brain, but they don't have the scaffolding or the harness and the nervous system which basically collects all the scattered data that is all over the company. The customer data is somewhere else, the product data is somewhere else, project management data is somewhere else, and the engineering related ADRs, that is architecture design reviews, are somewhere else. So it's all scattered data, and this is very common in some organizations which don't have that level of maturity. So it's all scattered all over the place. It's not easily accessible, and because of which this brain is not able to deliver the much needed productivity that they were promised. Only 1% of the companies are actually able to gain something out of this because they already have that mature process. Most of the 99% of the companies don't have it. Now, what is suddenly happening is these companies are now questioning that is it really worth paying this much huge amount of licensing cost if we are not getting the ROI. And that has started lot of chatter and that has started giving lot of pushback. Even you might have seen a couple of days back there was a report that Microsoft has asked some of its employees to not to use cloud because the token cost is very huge. AI is costing actually more than the humans. But that aside, this is the state of reality as of now. So what Anthropic and OpenAI thought is, well, what we can do is we can hire some folks, hire new people, and these hired people will be then deployed in these companies. And what is the nature of the work of these people? These people are basically supposed to go to these particular companies and help them with the integration of AI related workflows, implement MCP servers, implement RAGs, implement the prompts, understand how the company works, understand where the information is scattered all over the place, how to make it accessible and discoverable for the AI systems that they are going to bring into the organizations and enterprises, and make the companies AI ready. That's what the job profile of these so-called new FDE looks like. Some of you might be thinking, Anil, this pretty much looks like another consultancy. This is exactly what companies like TCS, Infosys, a lot of other companies were doing, right? I mean, they are sending their employees to the companies to get the job done. Yes, you are absolutely right. This is consultancy. Only the difference is now they will be coming from these AI companies, Anthropic or OpenAI, and they will be going to these enterprise companies to help deploy the Anthropic or OpenAI LLMs into the basically the companies. So basically, these FDs will be very well conversant with Anthropic or OpenAI related tooling capability. And enterprise need someone who understand the model. So that would be someone who will be coming from Anthropic or OpenAI. And FDAs can reduce the failed pilots that are happening, because a lot of these companies are doing POCs which work at the POC stage very well, but when it comes to real production level scaling, they are failing because they don't understand as good as Anthropic or OpenAI FDE would understand the actual correct way of doing it. So basically, they can discover repeated enterprise workflows, convert those into reusable product features. Now, this looks fine. I mean, there is a real need for these companies who can do this, but there are already a couple of industry folks who are saying that why don't you call this FD as a software engineer? At the end of the day, it is software engineering. It doesn't matter where the software engineer is coming from. Is it intentional or not intentional? Why they are not calling it as software engineering? Because I think there is something like a irony. They keep saying that no need of any software engineers, but then they are actually hiring these software engineers. But it looks ironic to call them as software engineers, and that is why they are calling these people as FDEs. Someone is saying that this is like a very glorified consulting services for the AI field. That's what it is. But there is another problem that might happen with this scenario. One is, of course, companies will get someone who is very well conversant with the LLM world and can come and build a better solutions that can deliver better results, which are production grade. But there are two other problems that might happen. One is, you might have heard something like vendor lock-in. In the SaaS world, vendor lock-in is a major problem. You buy a license for a particular software product. Initially, it delivers the goods that you really wanted, but then pretty soon the license costs slightly start going up. And if a FD is coming to your enterprise and he is coming from, say, Anthropic or OpenAI, he is going to build workflows, toolings, everything that are very much tightly coupled with Anthropic if he is coming from Anthropic, or very tightly coupled with OpenAI if he is coming from OpenAI or she is coming from OpenAI. So this is like another kind of vendor lock-in, which is LLM vendor lock-in or LLM lock-in or a brain lock-in. The nervous system that these FDEs that are going to build so that it can basically process and crunch the information that is scattered all over the company digital infrastructure to be able to deliver whatever the productivity gain. It will work only with those LLMs. If later point in time, if you decide that something is costing too much, OpenAI license is costing too much, and if you want to change from OpenAI to Anthropic, it might not work, because the nervous system that they might have built, it is very much specific to the LLMs from which they have been sent to build it. So this is a huge problem that enterprise companies will start feeling in the future. Can the companies write the service agreement such that they allow these FTEs to build that nervous system in platform agnostic way? Yeah, I mean, they can ask for it, but why would somebody who is coming from OpenAI will build a nervous system that will also work with Anthropic? I mean, there is a conflict of interest for them there. They would definitely would like to build something which works exclusively with their product. That also opens a small gate or a gap where once again these consulting companies, Infosys or TCS, who can come and say that we can also do the FDE job and we will do it in a LLM agnostic way. That is, we will build it that will work both with Anthropic, OpenAI or Kimi-K2, whatever in the future, so that you don't have to worry about this vendor lock-in that FDE from Anthropic or OpenAI might be causing. So yeah, I mean, that is one small option that these companies have, but that should be a major headache that any companies who would be hiring FDEs should really think about. Then second problem is all these companies, say For example, company which is working in a very highly regulated compliance, say healthcare sector or a oil and gas sector or even finance sector, data is gold. The data is their proprietary IP. And once you let someone from outside come in and work in these companies, they are basically getting exposed to all the data that is their company's proprietary data. I mean, these companies can say that you can't use our data to train your LLM. That kind of service agreement can be done. But when these FDEs come and work in these companies, they basically gain a lot of field intelligence. They understand how industry works, how the workflows work in that particular industry, what are repeatable workflows, what are the bottlenecks, where to invest more their time, and what is the guarantee that this kind of intelligence, I would say something like field intelligence, that these FDs are gaining when they work in these companies, what is preventing them that they don't go and use it in, say, their parent companies in Anthropic and OpenAI to build products and services which are going to directly compete with what these companies might be having or building. So this is another issue that these companies will have to think about. It's not really IP theft. It is, you can say, a field intelligence gathering that can really help these companies like Anthropic and OpenAI to build products and features. I mean, we already see that every time Anthropic announces that they have released some capability, shares of some companies in certain sectors suddenly drop by huge margin. So the possibility of what I am talking about not happening is really a wishful thinking. So that is another thing. So the companies who will be hiring these FDEs, they need to have some kind of a charter or a governance model set up before they hire these FDEs, before they come and work in these companies' floor. So FDE, even though the word looks pretty new, but it is not really new. Something like this has always been existed. It used to be called as consulting or IT consulting services. Now that it is just a IT consulting service coming from these LLM providers. That is what it is actually at the end of the day right now. They are emerging because companies are not able to leverage productivity gain they were promised, because AI at the end of the day is a amplifier. If your organization already has a very good engineering maturity, AI will amplify it. And if your company doesn't have a good engineering maturity, AI will amplify that also. So it basically holds a mirror to how mature you are as an organization. And the earlier mechanism of just getting the LLM with the best possible token budget is not going to solve the problem. So they really need someone like a FD to help them. But then getting an FD in their enterprise have certain consequences that they will have to deal with. It will be interesting to see where this will go. So drop in your comments. Thanks for your time. That brings us to the end of this particular video. Don't forget to like, comment, share the video and subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye.